Before I do anything, I kind of want to clarify, under or at least in my perspective, under the umbrella of business, I believe there's a dichotomy, difference between founder and entrepreneur. Very slight differences, but they do make the world very, very separate. For my entrepreneurial endeavors, the first thing was actually recess at school. I would actually figure out that you can buy stuff at Costco for super cheap, sell them to my friends at cheaper than a snack bar, and then I would, profit off of it and be happy, buy myself a toy or something. It was a good business up until I got detention. So that's my first entrepreneurial thing. My first, as a tech founder, was actually out of spite of Uber and Lyft, and it's so bad that I'm saying this. But at the time, Lyft was only in San Francisco, and Uber costs crazy amount of money just to get outside of San Francisco. So for me to go to Daly City all the way to Burlingame was almost $80. And I got super frustrated at that. And so I just said, forget that, let's fix this issue. And thus my first startup, which was Chariot, was born. So that was my aha moment. It was a very negative thing, but it turned out to be something beautiful. So that's mine.
For me, it happened quite early in my career as a scientist. You get trained so much while you're in the PhD program, and we got tortured so much with all of the trial and errors you have to do in the lab. And then all of a sudden you work in industry and everything's so simple. Everything that I encountered early on was so simplified, and I felt like, is this it? And that feeling just kept on going up to now, until recently, when I was exposed to almost the entire drug development process at StemCentrics, and I felt like I'm not as challenged. I felt like I can do more with what I know. With that, that feeling that I want to do more, I want to make a bigger impact. That really felt like I need to get out of here, eventually. And so, with that realization, I'm preparing for my next step, actually.
So my family, my grandfather is a big entrepreneur. So I looked up to my grandpa and kind of followed his footsteps in starting businesses. I think my aha moment is kind of the day. So being an entrepreneur is really hard, right? It's really, really hard. But the aha moments that keep you going are when you wake up and you're like, okay, so today I can decide what I want to do, and if I do something awesome, then it can actually have an effect on a lot of people. So I should probably get up and start moving. And so that's my aha day. When you're working in corporate, you may not have that chance as much. So that's my aha moment.
Awesome, thank you guys.
With my first company, it did well, and as a result, we got interviewed. We were in a number of publications: Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Forbes, Fortune. One of those was Inc. magazine, which I don't know if any of you guys read it. It's great for entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. There's actually a picture of me wearing less than my underwear. That's a different story, but a true story. You can Google exactly. I met the writer when we were coming up with the idea of the new company, and I said, well, what if we could help all small businesses and give them the type of information to see how they're comparing to their competitors, help them find customers, and all these types of, basically trying to bring the type of research that huge corporations have and put it in their hands. And I said, what would you think? Do you think that's a good idea? And he said to me, Anatolio, that's impossible. It can't be done. And I had this moment where I was like, what am I gonna do? What did I miss? I said, well, but why? And he says, because that's so important. Everybody needs that. If it could have been done, somebody would have done it already. And then I was like, that's my aha moment, because so what? That's exactly what they told me about my last company. Oh, you can't do that. Nobody will be able to do that. No one will buy it. But now most of the country is served by it. So with this new one, when somebody tells you that it's an obvious idea, I don't think I have great ideas. I have obvious ideas that nobody else has done before. So why not? You can do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So this question is just for Anatolio. Entrepreneurship can be very lonely and kind of a, I guess, lonely road. So who has been your mentor throughout this process?
Well, I've had a number of mentors, and I've actually really tried to reach out to the Filipino and Filipino American community to get that type of mentorship. And frankly, it's difficult. Like getting Dadao's time is not easy. He's just a busy guy, and everybody wants his time. I was going to put Yobi on the spot today. It's like, hey, this guy right here needs mentorship. But what I've had to do is actually look outside of the community. And it is unfortunate. You just step back to give you just kind of the magnitude of how much this is a problem. For those who are in tech, anybody here, how much do you see other Filipinos in tech?
This is like the only time.
Not
One of the
that
only
many
times.
leaders. That's the thing.
But I'm talking about, I just don't see them much at all in any position. It's super lonely. So like when we find each other, when Aaron did this, I was like, please, Aaron, thank you for what you're doing here, just so we can find each other. I'm actually in right now the Plug and Play Tech Accelerator. We were one of the companies selected to be part of it.
Jojo's Filipino.
Right, and I bumped into Jojo Flores, who is one of the co-founders of this, and now I'm starting to make these connections. And I hope I can open that up to all of you. I can't mentor all of you, but I hope we collectively can help. But I really had to go outside of the community. Basically to people who cared about my mission and what I'm about. And I also so much learning from the African American community. Like folks who are so committed, and I had to learn some of their language of code switch. I didn't even know what that meant. But the whole idea of, well, we can be Filipino in this context, but we need to adapt when we're in non-Filipino communities to work in business. And that's the reality is I can hang out with you guys here, we can have those shared experiences, but the reality is I can also hang with folks who are C-level people of Fortune 50 companies. And we have to, I think for all of us, we have to know what it is to be mentored and to mentor and to exist in those different realities.
Awesome, thank you. So, Erwin, Lisa, what was your biggest fear when you chose to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, oh my gosh. So I'm a really new entrepreneur. And so these things that they're all sharing, they're all like 5 steps ahead of me. 10 steps ahead of me. It's a realization of this year, early this year. And so I'm going through certain things. Right? You need to understand, you need to realize self-actualization, what's going on, and how you want that company to look like. The biggest fear is, well, obvious thing is your idea is not as novel as you think. But that can easily be resolved by doing research and connecting with the expert, the subject matter expert, whether they're in the industry. You need to be in the know what's going on in your industry. And in addition to that, you need to be well connected in your community, in your tech community. So for me, it's mass spectrometry. And then knowing as well the academicians who are on top of their games. So that easily got resolved. Then the other thing is, am I ready as a person? Am I, we're not talking about intelligence, we're not talking about dedication, we're not talking about commitment. It's about, is my EQ high enough to go through the entire phase of building my own company, co-start it with somebody? This is very honest answer. That's the fear. So you need to be very ready at your core You need to know who you are and what your purpose in life is and what your company should be or want to be, not should, you want to be, before you can really overcome all of those limitations or fears.
So my fear walking into the world of tech and entrepreneurship actually stems from existing, right? I think at a very deep level. And one thing I asked myself right before I even did this, started anything whatsoever, I was like, what do I really want to do? Humans live on average for 80 years. You only have 24 hours in a day. You'll never get those back. And so what I was thinking about was like, first of all, how am I going to affect the world? And when I figured it was startups, I diverged into, okay, am I going to be good enough? Is my idea really going to help people? Because everybody wants to put their Band-Aid on the world, but it's really rough and very scary when you actually do it. You put your product out there and you see what people say. 9 times out of 10, those assumptions you make are wrong, and it kind of feels like you get shot when that happens, right? But you just got to iterate and fix through it. So for me, it was just asking like, okay, is this going to help people? Because if it's not, I'm not only wasting my time, I'm wasting my team's time, I'm wasting my potential users' time. It's just solidifying the fact that if this is going to be effective enough. And yeah, that was my biggest fear. Other than that, I was just like totally ignorant to the subject, had no idea what I was doing, just jumped right in anyway.
All right. So this last question goes for each of the entrepreneurs. Can you just please answer this in one sentence? What advice would you give your younger self if you could start over again? For each of you guys.
My advice to my younger self is the same advice I would give to anybody I'm mentoring. The first one is understand the reality, right? Understand that 90% of startups fail, 90% of businesses fail. It's a very lonely road, whatnot. But the second piece of advice would be to ignore all that. Understand that it exists and it's happening, but ignore it because your momentum is what's going to carry you on throughout those disappointing times as a founder, right? You can't let that fire die, no matter what. And that's the 2 pieces of advice I would give.
I have 2 actually. One is I shouldn't have dropped my computer engineering degree when I was in undergrad and at Yale.
Yes.
I should have completed that. Should have learned coding early. And then the other one is I should have. I could have looked for a mentor much earlier on. More interdisciplinary, not just one mentor, because I've had chemists, my professors back in the Philippines as my mentors, and also my PI at UC Davis, but more interdisciplinary mentors. You think of a mentor as somebody who's older than you, has much more experience than you, in terms of years in your industry or in your specialty, but really, mentors are your friends. Mentors are your peers. Mentors are like people from different walks of life. People you can confide in and learn from. It's not just about the tech aspect, but also about life in general. That would have been, made me a more well-rounded person much earlier on, and I think it would have been, better perspective about career advancement and so on.
I would have showed myself Jonesy's deck with the arrow and the winding line. So JR, I know you have a plan, and it's gonna go like this. I think I would have told myself, enjoy the process.
When I started my first company, I had 2 full-time jobs. One was the company I was starting, and then I also had a job to pay the bills, right? And working 80 plus hours a week is really hard on your body and it distracts you. And eventually your stomach is in knots and you think you're having, well, no, you're having anxiety attacks.
Like
Anybody else?
discouraging entrepreneurship right now so bad.
Yeah, but because this was part of the thing is that I didn't commit. My advice is to take the leap sooner. What I regret with both of my companies is that I didn't do both of them 2 years before I started them. You'll always feel like you're not ready. You'll always think that you're not smart enough, good enough, whatever. There's going to be a million reasons why you think you can't. You need to silence those crazy voices in your head and take the leap of faith. Because look at everything that you have. Look at the school you come from. Look at the parents that helped you and support you. All of those things are probably in place for almost everybody in this room. My advice is take the leap much, much sooner.
Thank you guys, thank you.